From Toxic to Thriving, a masterclass for Black women leaving toxic jobs. We're going to have a very insightful, reflective, informative discussion about being in a toxic job and what your options might be to leave a toxic job. Not only to leave, but to leave and do well, okay? Because I know we all got bills to pay. So we want to be able to pay our bills when we leave these toxic jobs. If you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. So stay tuned. I'm going to be telling you more about a masterclass that's coming up to help you if you're a Black woman who's currently in a toxic job and you don't know where to start. You don't know even where to start. We're starting to figure out how to replace your income, how to find another job. This is the place for you. This is the video for you. So I'm going to turn it over to my guest, Patrice Lindo, for her to introduce herself. I'm going to get right into the conversation. So Patrice.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Kamani. My name is Patrice Lindo, as you said. I am known as the Career Nomad. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I think all of us at one point or another, if not even currently, are in these situations. And so it's great that we have this platform to come together in a safe space and really just touch and agree on how we're going to exit successfully.
True. So unfortunately, most of us have been in at least one toxic job as Black women. That happens to us a lot. And that's just because racism, sexism permeates all of our systems. Okay. So we might think, what's wrong with me? Why is it? Because that's just the way people are sometimes, that we are intimidating to some people because of what we bring to the table, even though they hire us based upon these skills, but then they become intimidated. That's the issue. So if you're in a situation where you are recognizing that people are not treating you in a way that you're, being treated with respect, and or you see no opportunities for real growth at your job, you maybe just outgrown it. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about first, how can you even tell you're in a toxic job? You might have the feeling already like, I do not like this place. I can't stand coming here. But let's talk a little bit about what is it? What characterizes a job as toxic? What would you say, Patrice? What are some of the signs?
So, Dr. Kamani, I'm going to say, as unscientific as it may be, your gut is one of the
That's
first
true.
things to say, wait a minute, something's off. But
Yeah.
sometimes in the midst and the urgency and the rushing of the toxicity, you
Mm-hmm.
don't even have time to really
Mm.
listen to, let alone detect your gut feeling like, something's off here.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows up. The experiences that either people I've worked with or even me myself has experienced is that
Mm-hmm.
if it's periodic that you're just in like a cycle at work where maybe you have a big project or a big
Mm-hmm.
deliverable and you're able to see your way, navigate through it, that's one thing. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's always just beneath the surface and then from time to time it's like whack-a-mole, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
popping up, that's one way. That's
Mm-hmm.
one way to sense. If you cannot stop at the end of the day and say, you know what, well, even though I was busy today, or even though, maybe I had a tough client today, that you still look forward to coming back tomorrow, there are
Mm-hmm.
some elements of that job, right, that really
Mm-hmm.
need a closer look. Is it people? Is it the volume of work? Is it the type of work? Is it the clients you have? What is it about that? And a lot of times, if we could just be still for a moment to really
Mm-hmm.
take a look at, well, there's something here. What is
Mm-hmm.
it here? And not question, oh, child, I'm crazy, or maybe I'm just too much in my head. We
Mm-hmm.
tend to do that, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
haste, if you call it that, of life, or as you
Mm-hmm.
said at the beginning, in the urgency of needing to make sure that we keep our jobs, right? You're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay, that's the situation. In some
Mm-hmm.
cases, even generationally, it's like, I'm going to say our mothers and grandmothers say, well, you have to take the bitter with the sweet. It's not going to always
Mm.
be sweet,
And
and no, no.
all jobs are like this. You're not there to love a job. You're just there to get some money.
Exactly. That
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. And we have to really search ourselves to find where that, I'm going to say, not even breaking point, because you're trying not to get to that breaking point, but what
Mm-hmm.
is your trigger to say, you know what? Yeah, this is what it is. And so, when you start to really reflect on what that looks like for you,
Mm-hmm.
and you really map that against what you expected it to look like or what you
Mm-hmm.
need for it to look like, that
Mm-hmm.
gap is what determines the level of, oh, you know what? this is not good for my health. I need to get out of
Yeah.
here. Or you know
Yeah.
what? This is messing with my mind. I need to get out of here. Or you know what? This is impacting my health.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get out of here. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it's very subtle at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the more sophisticated we get at, I'm going to say, tunneling through it and just buckling down and getting our work done, the more we
Mm-hmm.
shut those natural instincts down.
Yeah.
And our subconscious gets even smarter, right? So the more we're like, you know what, I'm in my head, I can do this, I can muscle through this. Our subconscious is telling us, well, if you quit, such and such is going to happen, like the other shoe is going to drop. So how do we
Mm.
turn down that voice and turn up
Mm-hmm.
the voice of self-care? Because
Mm-hmm.
self-care starts with just that, self.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you determining, you having the autonomy to say, you know what, I'm not going to stay in this position. I need to create a plan because this is not going to overtake me.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that in terms of impacting your health. So I'm saying that as a toxic job survivor and as a psychologist, that when you're in these chronically stressful situations at these jobs, it starts taking a toll on you
Mm-hmm.
mentally and or
Mm-hmm.
psychologically. So
Mm-hmm.
some of the signs that you might experience, anyone watching this, might be a sense of dread going to
Yes.
work,
Sunday night
difficulties.
scaries.
Oh my God, yeah,
Yeah.
girl, yes. Uh,
Yes.
sadness, pervasive sadness, feeling like
Yes.
things will never get any better,
Yes.
that your life has become your job. It becomes
Yes.
all consuming.
Yes.
Feeling a sense of anxiety, like you're always
Yes.
on eggshells,
Yes.
having
Yes.
nightmares about the job,
Yes.
or
Yes.
even feeling like your job is like a trauma trigger in some
Yes.
ways. It's
Yes.
reminding you of other traumatic events in your life.
Yes. Yes.
And something that I like to emphasize too is you feel like you're starting to become a different person. You
Yes.
feel like, wait a minute, this is not even who I am. And now I'm
Yes.
starting to act a certain way. I'm starting to be
Mm-hmm.
a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then physically, your blood pressure might be going up. Your blood sugar ratings might start going
Yes.
up,
Yes.
gaining weight, losing weight. So there's a whole host of symptoms that may happen.
Yes.
And when people ask me, like, how do I know the job is toxic? Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it really comes down to what is your intuition telling you?
Yes.
Your
Yes.
intuition telling you, girl, this is not a good situation
Yes.
and it's not going to get any better. The
Yes.
more you keep telling yourself it's going to get better, no, it's not going to get better. It's probably going to get worse. But
Yes.
the other part too, Patrice, is number one, that we need to stop lying to ourselves because as Black women, we work harder and
Yes.
harder and harder. Oh, it's
Yes.
hard. Okay, they think it's me. I'm going to show them. I'm going to work even harder. And then we have other people around us, particularly those older generations,
Yes.
saying, that's just how jobs are. You
Yes.
just have to
Yes.
deal with it. What else you gonna do? This is a good
Yes.
job. So we have all that noise, all that
Mm-hmm.
chatter.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the importance of us being able to say for ourselves, this is toxic for me, and there's another way. Even though other people may not believe it, we are here to say to Black women and to model to Black women
Yes.
that there is a way out. You can get out of toxic jobs and
Mm-hmm.
come up with a plan for leaving. That's why we're here today to talk
Yes.
about the plan for leaving. One of the things we're talking about today is this masterclass, and
Mm-hmm.
Patrice is one of the speakers of the masterclass,
Yes.
along with Marissa and I, and Latrice. I see Latrice is in the audience as well. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the masterclass. So why is it crucial for Black women to know about the signs that they may be in a toxic job?
It's crucial for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is depending on the type of role that you're in, when you have, let's just say, not necessarily listened to your voice, right? And you're
Mhm,
surveying the environment. If a part of that environment is getting feedback that's not based on your work, but based on things like you look mad or you're unapproachable, like things that are intangible. So they're picking, so to speak, at your person. That's
mm,
another sign, right? So
mm,
let's just say we have stage gates. The first one is, let's say, you checking with yourself. And even when you check with yourself, if you're ignoring it or if you're just not paying enough attention to it or you're working harder to go through it, the
mhm,
reality of the situation is when it goes to, like, I think the first stage is you. The second stage is, well, when you're surveying the area that is coming from other people. And when I say
mhm,
other people, I mean like your supervisors, your decision
mm,
makers, the people that really hold the keys to your job.
mhm, mhm,
Then that's something else too. Because, for example, one of the things that can happen to us,
mhm,
especially as hard workers, is that
mhm,
people will, I'm going to say, mistake how we respond or even not respond. For example, whether it's to be to feedback, whether it's driving, different initiatives, whether it's just being, a team member, it begins to be a personal thing. So that's another indication that this is a toxic place for you, because if you keep the work on the work, that's different. If you haven't done something, if there are 10 steps and it wasn't done well, or if there was some level of, a mistake made, or if you did something egregious, to a colleague or a client, that's different, right? Because then it's like X plus Y equals Z, or X minus Y is whatever. But when it's like, well, she looked like, or she made me feel, or she intimidated me, or she's too whatever they're going to add to that, then that's another red flag. It's a huge red flag, because at that point, you have been able to typically mask, right, through the overwork and, keeping your face together, or going into the bathroom and crying and coming back out ready to go.
And tone policing yourself. Look, like, is that, how did I say that? How do I say that? Your emails, checking your emails over and over again. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the second, I think, stage of warning, so even if you've bypassed yourself, the second stage is when you begin to notice it around you. So then you're not in your head. Then you have living proof. And what you want to do is really take notice, like, well, wait a minute. Like you said, that's not who I am. Like if they say, for example, to me, like, you're always so, let's just say, angry. I'm like, you can't read my mind. And I know that am I making it do that? I'm sorry.
No, that's just the if you have an iPad. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I was like, you can't read my mind. And one thing I've learned in these 51 years is how to keep my face together. Right. So I know that I'm not giving you mean girl, bad girl, I want to mess you up, girl. Right. Especially at work. But sometimes, people try to get into your head. And so when I say get into your head, when you are in that situation, you need to really take a pause and say, wait a minute, is this person for me or against me? Because if they have the ability, for example, to say in my performance, like, oh, you did all your work well, but, and then they're going to talk about your attitude, and it's not things like be a team player. Well, what are the examples? I've never been coached on that. Please share with me, some examples. And then when you do that, you could be considered confrontational. This is where, again, you need to document these things, and you need, if nothing else, for your own sense of sanity. What I tend to do is every day at the end of work to this day, because I still work a 9 to 5, I jot down, like, what were the highlights of my day? Good, bad, or indifferent. Because what will happen is you can detect, right? When you're looking at those things, like, well, wait a minute, Pam spoke to me a certain way and I felt this way a few times, like, what's going on here? Or you can also highlight who your advocates are, your true advocates, because in that same situation, when you work with someone and it feels good, then you can sort of negate that toxicity by having that trusted relationship, if that's what it is, to say, you know what, Kamani, I experienced this. Is that what you saw? Because you're a trusted mentor of mine. So you can kind of balance it out that way.
Okay, I have a few comments about that before I ask you the next question.
Yes.
One is, when we start recognizing that an environment is toxic, even if we have some allies there, that's my sign that it's probably not a good environment for us, even if we have some people there that we're cool with.
Yes.
Because eventually that toxicity is going to start getting into our system, right? And then the other thing is, we have to be very mindful of who we talk to in the workplace.
Yes.
And I want to say that because I've got burned a few times about that. So be mindful of who you say are your allies.
Yes.
Because they may, for whatever reason, tell your business to other people.
That's right.
So just use discretion with that.
That's
okay. I'm not going to say don't do it, because I have some really good friends who work the, but be mindful about that. Okay. Absolutely. The other thing I want to say too, Patrice, this is a different question I thought about. I think many of us have been in situations, myself included, where we're in a job, we are performing high level, we're getting positive evaluations, we're getting promotions, we're getting all these things, and then boom, something happens, boom, right? And so it's like a confusion, like, what's happening here? And then we work harder and harder and harder. What is the danger of doing that?
Your health.
Yep.
Because at that point, you're like, well, wait, I got there once. I was there. I'm going to get back there, right? I'm going to, especially when you didn't do anything, because the runway for grace is not as long for us typically as it is for others. So let's just
Mhm.
start there, right? With
Mhm.
making mistakes. There'll be other groups that can do things and, oh, Mary, we have to give her a learning curve, blah, blah. And
Right.
you forget to dot
Or
your
can
I
you
and cross
help
your
her
T.
out? Can you help her out?
Exactly.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
forgot to dot your I and cross your T. And it's like, well, how'd you get here? What is you,
Mhm.
what, you're not ready. You may
Right.
need to step back or, those types of things. So let's just
Yeah,
call that thing a thing.
exactly.
But in addition to that, I can tell you personally, when I was in a role that really was just like you said, you come in, you're the darling. It's almost a little bit of that pet to threat.
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Exactly right. You come in,
absolutely.
they're really happy to have
Mhm.
you.
They
You
love
come in,
you.
you
Oh my
hit the
God.
ground
You're so
running.
wonderful. You're so smart. You're saving this organization. Yeah, the whole thing. Gas
And
you up.
then all of a sudden, like you said, something happens and you really almost like, well, what did happen? Like, where did I miss something?
Right.
And the tide changes. And I will tell you, then at least some of us tend to, myself included, we
Mhm.
start like what I call it, almost self-destructive in a corporate way behavior. Because
Mhm.
then you begin like double, what's the word? Like,
Well, self-gaslighting, right? Marissa and I talk about that.
almost
Marissa
like
Price and I.
gaslighting, like
Mhm.
you're not sure, you can become insecure,
Mhm.
the confident, kind of shoulders back position that you typically have is no longer
Mhm.
as strong as
Mhm.
it was. You become, less of who you are. You show up
Mhm.
differently, right? Especially
Mhm.
depending on who that, I'm going to say, feedback comes from, right?
Mhm.
Or what entity that feedback comes from. And like you
Mhm.
said, especially if you don't have the space or safety to be able to say, everything was fine to this point. Let
Yeah.
me, sort this out with you. What is it that I'm missing? Then you're in your head and you're constantly
Mm.
fixing something that you don't know what broke it or what's
Yeah.
broken to begin
Yeah.
with, right? And sometimes that happens like with a change of, bosses or supervisors. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
when they have mergers. Sometimes,
Mhm.
a new person comes in, on the team, and that person, for whatever reason, jives better with the leadership than you. They're just things
Mhm.
that are not necessarily under your control. So
Mhm.
then you double down on the things that you can control. And
Right.
then those things are your ability to produce good work. Unfortunately, you can do things like second guess yourself, overwork. I mean,
Mhm.
it's 9 o'clock and you should have stopped working at 5 o'clock, but you want to make sure you get ahead so they don't have nothing to say. I mean, it
Mhm.
becomes a vicious
Oh yeah.
cycle, right? And it's just like,
Over preparing.
or just
Over
overworking,
preparing.
because when you
Yes.
present that, then they find things. It's like they find one thing and you fix it, then they find five more things, then they fix it,
Right.
they find five more things, and it's like, wait a minute, like I'm getting on
Right.
this merry-go-round. This doesn't
Right.
work. So
Exactly.
that's why I said your health. If it's not your physical health, it's your mental
Mhm.
health. If it's not your mental
Mhm.
health, it's your spiritual health. But all
Mm.
three can be impacted when you decide that's the way that you want to go or have to go. And not
Mhm.
that you shouldn't do that at all, Dr. Kamani. All I'm
Mhm.
saying is that that's when you're like, you know what? I think I need to start preparing. You know what I mean?
Yes. Let me get
Preparing in
my
the
stuff
sense that,
together.
I remember when I was getting ready to go to college, when I was living with my mom as a teenager. And,
Mhm.
sometimes mothers and daughters do this.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I just remember when I was getting ready to go to college, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start putting my stuff together, because when I get out of here, I'm not coming back. And so I started like if I got something new, I would like save it to the side. I would
Mhm.
start thinking about what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. Now, of course, you grow up and that was not the situation, but
Right.
you
Right.
start putting things in order. So is it
Mhm.
saving a little extra money? Is it starting your side hustle? Is it,
Mhm.
discreetly getting your credentials together? And I don't mean in any
Mhm.
way taking their, intellectual property. I'm just
Mhm.
saying, if you have things that you want,
Mhm.
you begin to prepare,
You
right?
get that training there, you get all that
Yes.
stuff, you make those connections, you think
Yes.
about the skills that you can
That's
transfer
right.
to something else.
That's
So make
right.
that job work for you. I did a video about that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you know what? For those of you who are not familiar with Pets a Threat, so we've talked about that.
Oh,
So I
yes.
just want to briefly tell people who are not familiar with Pets a Threat what that is.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Pets a Threat was created by 3 Black women researchers,
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Juanita Johnson Bailey, Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr.
Hmm.
Rosemary Phelps. Pet the Threat deals with when a Black woman comes into the workplace and she's sought out
Yeah.
because of her outstanding work abilities. She
Hmm.
comes in, she is doing it, right?
Yes.
Patrice is, oh my God, I love Patrice. Patrice is so smart. Patrice is doing all this stuff,
Hmm.
right? So then Patrice starts getting a lot of shine, a lot of attention, and she's treated like the pet. But
Yeah.
then when Patrice or you
Hmm.
starts
Hmm.
outshining other people in the workplace, then there's a shift. It's
Yeah.
like that. in
Yep.
terms of how you're treated like a
You
threat.
become a threat.
Oh, and they tried everything to do to make you think that you are less than, that
Yes.
there's something wrong with you, that you're the problem. And
Yes.
there might be that push out or do things to you that are so difficult, make the work environment so difficult for you
Unbearable.
that you want to leave. So that's what happened to me. And
Yes.
I've done videos about that. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank
So,
you.
Patrice, in terms of the mental health signs, we
Yes.
talked about being very mindful of that, right? What are some things in terms of mental health signs and well-being that a Black woman needs to be really attuned to as she's thinking about leaving a toxic job?
Your level of anxiety is one.
Mm,
Your ability to step away and be away. So think about in the evenings, whether you're working late or on the
mhm.
weekends, if you're like, even though you've left work, you haven't mentally left work, right?
Oh, girl.
And that's just
Woo!
pervasive. Not that you have a particular project you're working on, but it's just always there because you're
You're
trying to
planning
step
what
two
happened that
steps
day and what
ahead.
somebody said and what you should
Exactly.
have said and what you,
Exactly.
oh, yes.
Exactly. In
Hmm.
addition to that, if there's always a sense that you feel like you need to, I'm going to say almost like put your name on stuff because the people you're working with will take credit for your stuff. So you have a feeling that you're like, well, wait, I did this and I'm going to email everybody and they daddy so they know I did this.
Right.
That's another sign, right? That when you're
Yes.
constantly, what I'm going to say is like hyper alert, aware of the
Hmm.
fact that people on this team or in this environment
Hmm.
don't play fairly, right? So
Yeah.
you're doing things to anticipate protection, right, of
Yeah.
yourself. So it's
Watching
kind
your
of
back
like
all the time.
in an abusive relationship, like especially like as kids, if you were abused and you see a kid constantly flinch, right? That's
Hmm.
because that kid has probably been hit a lot. So
Yeah.
that's the corporate version of flinching, right? Because you anticipate that something's
Hmm.
going to happen. So those are some of the key signs that I've
Yeah.
seen that really just another one that is mental but it becomes physical is
Hmm.
crying.
Mm.
If especially if you're not a crier. So if you
Hmm.
just feel so overwhelmed that you're just like distraught, like where are
Hmm.
you on the scale of how you're feeling? I
Yeah.
feel like that's, I mean, while there's nothing wrong with crying in some situations, that's a
Hmm.
sign of help me. And
Yeah.
nobody's there to help me type thing, and
Yeah.
like despair.
Yeah.
So I think those are really big flags. At least
I
they are
agree.
for me.
I agree. And I've heard so many Black women talk about crying driving to work, crying
Yes.
leaving to work,
Yes.
crying in the bathroom at the job. So,
Yes.
crying and then trying to mask and put yourself together, look like you're
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
but you're dying inside, you're miserable inside.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
so all these things are really indicative that this job is not for you. It's
Yeah.
toxic. It's
Mhm.
time to start preparing to go. Even though you might think you are comfortable there, you're not comfortable
You're
there.
not.
You're just used to the insanity there,
That's
okay?
right. That's
But
right.
it doesn't mean your comfort because if you're crying, you're not comfortable at any way.
At
And
all.
so really saying, okay, I need to do what's best for me and my
Yes.
family. And
Yes.
at this point, I need to start making some plans. And so that's what we're talking about. So
Yep.
one of the things that I want to highlight is if you are having these symptoms and you're watching this, you have any symptoms, please know that you're not alone,
Mhm.
that a
Mhm.
lot of us have had this experience or still having this experience.
Yes.
And that therapy, if you're not already in therapy, that is
Yes.
very helpful for you to
Yes.
be in a space where you know you can trust the person. You know that what you're saying is they're hearing you, they're not gaslighting you. You can reality test about what's happening. And you
Mhm.
could address some of these symptoms you're experiencing, these
Yeah.
mental health symptoms, to help prepare you to say, okay, I need to start getting my act together so I
That's
can get my
right.
plan together to
That's right.
leave. Yes. Okay.
And
So,
in our
Patrice,
workshop, we will talk about, how to identify these signs because they show up differently
hmm,
in everyone, right? We all
yes.
have different sort of triggers. Some people eat, some people cry, some people drink, some people yell, some people
Mhm,
exercise. Like it's
mhm,
usually something to kind of swap out that feeling
mhm,
or somehow
mhm.
address that feeling when in fact it could be harming us. So
Yes.
we will definitely talk about that. And you will leave the workshop with Dr. Kamani and myself equipped with some tools that you may
Mhm,
not have thought of or you may not have
mhm,
been aware of to
mhm.
help stop these toxic patterns and really act on them in a way that preserves self.
Yes, yes. So the masterclass that Patrice is referring to, again, registration information is on the screen. So that will
Mhm.
be for you to be in the waiting list. So the masterclass has been pushed back to October 20th. Okay. So just be aware that resources are available to you. So you have toxic job survivors, you have me, you have Patrice, you have Latrice, you have Marissa sharing information with you about how to get yourself ready. Because getting ready is not just do A, B, and C. It's a lot of the mental stuff too.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about all the mental preparation and the practical things you need to do so you can move. You can pivot. Okay.
Yes.
So as we're thinking about pivoting, as we're thinking about going to another job, what are some tips? And I don't want you to give all the goodies away.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
You're giving some of the goodies, but I don't want you to give all the goodies away.
Yes.
So as we talk about this, what are some of the ways or some of the things that Black women can think about in terms of rebranding themselves as they transition out of a toxic job?
So one of the things that I would definitely recommend is, and this is a little tactical to begin with, but go back to your performance reviews or any sort of kudos, or you have to remind yourself of what you did well sometimes, especially in a toxic situation, because you will have amnesia. You will have what I call success amnesia. You will like go out and do all these things when it was good, if you call it that. And then when it gets bad, you're just like, I just don't know. I just like your brain goes into a fog.
Well,
So
can I say something real quick? Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
I'm wondering, and I hope I don't make you lose your train of thought, but I just thought about something. I'm wondering if it's also, on the one hand, you know you're dope, but then you get this feedback from people at the job questioning you.
Yes.
So then you're thinking, well, if they're treating me like this, maybe I'm not. But no, it's just the opposite.
That's right.
The fact that they're treating you like that is because you are dope and they're intimidated by you. Sorry, I had to say that.
No. That completely tracks, because the reality is they see something in you and they're like, wait, she sees it too? Oh, I'm going to fix that. Oh, no.
Right. Or
that's the equivalent of they're eating cats and dogs and they don't know what else to say. We're not calling no names. We're just saying that's the equivalent of that.
Right.
So you got to remember and put your face on. Put that face on like, say what now? What did you say?
Right.
You know, and really rebrand yourself, starting with you. Remind yourself of what you do. So I say, whether you're in a toxic job or not, but especially if you're in a toxic job, whatever your way of collecting that data, right? Or recollecting that data. So going back to your old performance reports, you know, going back to like when you were promoted. You can even go back to when you got your degree. Like, wait a minute, this girl got this piece of paper, is not the person that they are trying to create. I know I can. And not that it's only degrees, but whatever your achievements have been, big or small, write them down, get them in front of you, read through them on a daily basis and add to them on a daily basis. Even if it's, I made it through today and I didn't choke Cindy. That's an achievement, because Cindy probably needed to be met somewhere else, right? But you didn't, right? But I'm serious. You know, really capture, remind yourself and capture your successes for moments like these and rebrand yourself. So for example, if you think of the concept of, let's start with Oprah. So for example, Oprah was a news anchor, and between being too heavy or too dark or too this or that, yes, she transitioned into television, but from television she whatever into books, and then from books into all the different philanthropic things she's doing. As she wasn't fired and she wasn't in a toxic workplace, but I'm saying she was able to find parts of herself, even if she stumbled upon them, even if it was like her book club was because she loved to read.
True.
For example. So what are the things that you, I'm going to say, enjoyed doing or enjoyed achieving that you want to double into? So for example, for me, I really enjoy coaching, because people would always talk to me like, well, how do I do this for my job? Or how do I do this to pass my class? And I was like, kind of comes naturally. So how can I break this down? And then I was like, well, wait a minute, I do this at work too. So wait, there's some commonalities here. There's some similarities here. And even in the toxic workplaces, those are the places that I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to coach myself like I would have coached somebody else, you know, or I get around coaches, like someone, you know, you were like, hey, that's motivation. right? You get around people, right, that
Yes.
will speak life into you
Yes.
and remind you of who you are and what you came to do, that it's
Yes.
bigger than that. So I'm going to say rebranding is one of the key things you want to do, because you have to be able to tell you don't want, I'm going to say, you don't want to give your agency away by needing to be validated externally, right?
Oh, that's so important.
You
Yes.
have to be able to do it and listen and believe it and really feel it yourself, so that if you, for example, lose that job, walk out of that job, you still are who you are. And so some of
Exactly.
that is, like, for example, the technical or tactical pieces are like, I don't introduce myself by my 9 to 5.
Girl, please. Right.
I talk
That's
about
not who
what
I
I
am.
do.
Exactly. That's not
Career
who I
pivots
am.
in coaching.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Start by going into the things that you do. If you're an amazing cook, if you're an amazing dancer, if you're an amazing speechwriter, copyright, talk about the skills you have, not the titles that you have,
So
to
important.
rebrand yourself, right? To
So
rebrand
important.
yourself. So that's what I would say. That's my first thing, because then you remember who you are and you really
Yes.
tap into your strengths, and then you can redefine your goals. So then it's no longer, that job is not the North Star. Your North
No.
Star is really the impact that you're here to create.
Your North Star is how to get out of this toxic place
That's right.
and
That's
be
right.
someplace where you feel respected, affirmed,
That's
and you
right.
can grow. And
That's
part
right.
of it too is really knowing who you are and knowing what you bring to the table. And
That's
when
right.
people start treating you in a way that's not consistent with what you're bringing to the table,
Oh, yeah.
that's another sign that it's time to go. And
Oh,
so
yes.
the rebranding, is that something you're going to be talking about in the masterclass, Patrice?
Oh, it absolutely is, because a lot of us have I shouldn't say a lot. Some of us have a hard time with
Mm-hmm.
saying what we do well, right? Because then our, I'm going to say, upbringing, culture, society, it tells us, how to, like,
Be
pipe down a little
humble.
bit.
Be
You,
humble.
or demure. That's the buzzword now. Be demure. And
Uh-huh.
that may work outside or in
Mm-hmm.
your personal relationships, but at work, you still have to stand flat-footed and be able
Mm-hmm.
to say what it is you do well and
Mm-hmm.
how you do it, and
Mm-hmm.
the impact that you have and that sort of thing. So you definitely will have the opportunity to really tap into that, because a lot of times we struggle with putting
Mm-hmm.
words to what we do. And
Right.
so I will be able, what I'm planning to do is help you and the attendees really think through what that looks like individually. What are
Mm-hmm.
the questions you can ask yourself to assess your own skills, abilities, and
Mm-hmm.
achievements, so that
Mm-hmm.
as you're talking about the, I'm going to say, rebranding of who you are, because to be honest, you've been that person all the time. You've just
Mm-hmm.
turned the volume down on that to turn
Yeah.
the volume up on your job. So how do
Yeah.
we rebalance that, right? How do
Yeah.
we turn the volume up on you and the volume down on your job? And while that sounds simple, it's something a lot of us struggle with. So, if you're thinking
Mm-hmm.
about, as you write your, for example, resume or LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
profile, or even speak about yourself or introduce
Mm-hmm.
yourself, how do you introduce yourself? Like, I
Mm.
force myself to say career nomad when I'm introducing myself, because it reminds me, like, oh yeah, you're that girl that can help
Yeah.
people pivot their careers and go from this to that, whether it's for more money, out of a toxic environment, to achieve your
Mm-hmm.
dreams, whatever the case might be. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I teach other people how to do that, because that's something that I do. And I teach people how to do that, to see the value and the goal that you have within that you've been
Mm-hmm.
hiding.
Yeah. Or you've been told to hide.
That's true.
Right. You've been
Very
told to
true.
hide
Very
directly
true.
and or the way people
Indirectly.
treat you,
Yes.
that we
Yes.
know that they're intimidated. And so then we dim our light. We kind of sink down because we don't want to make people too uncomfortable
Oh,
because they
yes.
can't deal with our brilliance. But I digress. So
No, and this toxic environment is ripe for that, right? The toxic environment is ripe for us getting quiet, because then we're like, well, let me just go on and be quiet and just shut up and just do my job, because I just need to get out of here, blah,
Mhm,
blah, 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 blah. And so
mhm,
as people are thinking about the next phase of their career, a good, I would say, idea in preparation for our class is
mhm.
beginning to think about, well, who are you really in
Yeah,
this job?
yeah,
What is it that you've done? And
yeah.
sometimes people are like, well, nothing, I just did my job. No, no, no.
No. What were the skills that you got to get the job?
That's
We need
right.
to think about that
That's
because
right.
they don't usually hand out jobs to us. Now
They
they do
don't.
that to other people who are mediocre at best, but for
Okay.
us, we
Right.
all tend to be over
Right.
qualified. So
Right.
just think about the skills. What were the skills that you had that you got that job? What are the
That's
skills
right.
that you currently utilize? Now, again, I'm not going to give you all the goodies. You got to go
Yes.
to the masterclass. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I'm
Yes.
giving some
Yes.
of the goodies, not all the goodies. Okay.
But we all
So,
have a powerful narrative. We all
yes, we
do. And it's
do.
just a matter of tapping into it.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Mhm.
So, what about networking,
Mhm.
right? So, I know that when I was at the previous toxic job, I met so many people
Yes.
that have helped me
Mhm.
create multiple streams of income. So, those were people who either worked the job or that I had associations with outside the job, but I met
Mhm.
them through the job. And this has really turned out to be it turned out very well for me.
Right.
So,
Right.
can you talk about the power of networking?
So people tend to think, first of all, I think incorrectly about networking. You think
Mm,
probably meeting in a room, swapping business cards, and oh, I hate to do that,
yeah.
type thing. It's not that, and it's not even LinkedIn connections alone, or it's
Uh
not
huh.
just like, hey, can you connect me with so and so and so.
Mhm.
Networking, I really feel, is one of the most powerful tools that you can have that can open the door to your next opportunity. And you can also, in turn, open the door to other people's next opportunity.
Mm,
And so, us, especially as Black women, I
mhm.
would say we're really good at building relationships, building that sense of trust and credibility. Think about your good girlfriends group or your
Mhm.
good guy friends group. How can you bring those tenets to work in a way that makes sense to
Mhm.
achieve the things you want to do? So, for
Mhm.
example, even in a toxic workplace, without telling your business,
Mhm.
is there someone there, maybe I'm going to say at a different level or in a different department that you get
Mhm.
along with,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That can advise you and really create almost a level of safe space, but that's not really what I mean. A place where you can have a solid conversation
Mhm.
about how to connect the dots at that job or in your industry or as you want to go into another field. You're not
Mhm.
telling them what you're doing, but you're just having to create that support that you're looking
Mhm.
for by modeling
Mhm.
that. So, for example, if I say, even at work in a social conversation, like, hey, I want to one day go to Bali because in
Mhm.
Bali, I could ride the big swing and that will help me get over my fears. I'm not talking about this job that's, I feel like I'm on this big swing every day. I'm talking about like how this person handles duress and who they
Mhm.
talk to and what they did and what their
Mhm.
story is, blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. So, that's how you can network in a way that makes sense and it's
Mhm.
also human. So
Mhm.
it takes away the what's the word, the griminess, for lack of a better word, of like,
Mhm.
here's my number or here's my email or hi, hello, all the digital things that
Like very
people do.
transactional, very like sterile,
Exactly,
you
exactly,
know?
and creates genuine connection.
Yeah.
Another thing is that even in a toxic workplace, if you can believe it,
Mhm.
if you, depending on the size of the workplace, of course, if you are able to really tap into other parts of the company, sometimes
Mhm.
you can find rays of light in those other areas. So I
Mm.
was once at a company
Mhm.
where I was in, this toxic environment,
Mhm.
and I decided I was going on a Patrice campaign. And by that I meant I went to different areas. So whether it was HR, operations, public service, like outside of my particular department, and
Mhm.
I met with leaders in that department, and I would just put like a 10-minute coffee chat, like, hi, I'm Patrice. My background is blank, blank, blank. I would love to talk with you. And some people said yes, some people said no. The ones that said yes, I would get on the phone and I would literally introduce myself and then have them talk. So then
Mm.
they're telling me about what they do and how they do it. So you're kind of pulling information from them and then you respond and you begin that kind of back and forth. Again, what we
Mhm.
have in common is that we're both at the same firm, for
Mhm.
example, and
Mhm.
there's a connection because we both like change management or whatever it is that you're doing, but you
Mhm.
establish that bond. The ones
Mhm.
that work, in other words, the conversations that were really good, or maybe there's
Mhm.
something you can partner up on or something that you want to follow up on, you
Mhm.
can, I'm going to say, stretch that connection,
Mhm.
right? To,
Mhm.
well, can we meet quarterly? Because this is really cool talking to you, blah, 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 blah. Or the
Uh-huh.
ones that weren't so well, like, okay, thank you for your time. This was great. That was
Mhm.
one way that I really built my network, and I networked my way out of that toxic job.
Hmm.
Because in talking to people at this job, they were
Mhm.
like, okay, like one told me, you're in this area, but nobody really cares about this area. You need to get out of there. Go back to
Oh.
bread and butter and do XYZ. I did that. Like, you don't know the nuggets that you will get
Hmm.
from hearing other perspectives, and it's a breath of
Hmm.
fresh air. Now, you do have to do this outside of your responsibilities, because ain't nobody telling you, don't get
Right.
pissed off that you're not doing your work. But I'm just saying, this is a way that what I call you become a solid business operator of you. The
Mm.
LLC of you, right? Is
Hmm.
to go out and market and promote and connect and really, drive impact, drive change. And so
Hmm.
while that may be manual, that, you're getting time with these, I'm going to call them proposed mentors. I
Hmm.
think it's important that people get to know who you are, and you
Hmm.
need to know who they are. I did
True.
this for approximately 6 months. And in
Hmm.
those 6 months, I had about 30 meetings, like across the 6 months. And of
Mm.
those 30 meetings, I have 10 of them 2 years later, still in my ecosystem that I talk to. I mean,
Wow.
we've connected on LinkedIn. In some cases, we've grabbed dinner. In some
Hmm.
cases, it's just like, hey, do you know anyone that will be good for this position? Or,
Hmm.
hey, happy holidays.
Mm.
You just never know. And
You
some
never
of them have
know.
actually turned into business.
Wow. Right. But
So
but another benefit from that is that you learn to really speak to your skills,
that's right. And your
right? So
impact.
you're yes. So you're not just talking about your job title, you're talking
That's
about,
right.
hey, I'm Patrice, I'm really good at da, 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 da,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes,
So it's
yes.
a good way to kind of market yourself and get used to marketing yourself
And
as
talking about
opposed
yourself.
to your job title. That's a good
Yes,
point. That's a good
yes.
point.
And you'll also hear what it sounds like, because sometimes I know when I spoke to them and I would say what I did, they would restate what they heard, and I'd be like, "Oh, I
Hmm.
like that sound bite. I'm gonna write that down.
Ah,
The next
okay.
time I talk about myself, I'm gonna say that because that sounded
Ah,
good." You
okay.
get little nuggets like that.
Yeah, yeah. So tune
Hmm.
into that. So we're talking a lot about career pivoting.
Hmm.
Okay. So what would you say to Black women who, let's say they pivot to a different job?
Hmm.
What are some of the ways or some of the things that they can do so that they are seen and valued in this new role that they're in?
So once they land, basically, what's their plan, right?
Mm-hmm,
How to
mm-hmm,
to really land in a way that makes sense and doesn't
mm-hmm.
recreate, hopefully, that
Oh,
toxic environment.
yeah, no.
Because sometimes we go in jaded, like, well, this last one was like that, so I don't know if this one's like it, that sort of thing.
Right.
I'm going to say it starts with boundaries for
Mm-hmm,
yourself.
mm-hmm,
What are the things that are a deal breaker
mm.
in your next role? So hopefully you would have done this before you got this next role.
True,
But
true.
once you get there, if you haven't, I would do that, right? Be really clear on the things that you need and the things that you will not tolerate or cannot
Mm-hmm,
tolerate for your own
mm-hmm,
sense of
mm-hmm,
good, right?
mm-hmm.
In addition to that, I would also continue that rebranding, because even though you're new to this environment,
Mhm.
definitely the people there don't know you in this new role.
Right,
So, how
right.
are you going to find ways to connect the dots about how you can create impact
Mhm,
in this new role with the
mhm,
skills that you bring to
mhm,
this job? And
mm,
not just in your department, but wherever it applies, right? Look for ways to integrate what you know
mhm,
how to do, so that it's not just you in your one role doing this one thing. It's
mhm,
that networking again, right? It's that, like, for example, if you land, I'll use myself as an example. If I land on, let's say, the change management team, then
mhm,
I talk to the human resources team, because they're going to do learning and development, and a part of that learning and development is change management. I'm going to
mhm,
talk to the IT department because they're doing a lot of implementations, and sometimes they have not thought about how change is going to impact them. So I start
mhm,
a conversation there. It may
mhm,
mean I talk to the operations department. Again, think of everywhere that could be impacted by the work that you're doing, or work that you'd like to do, even
mhm,
to
mhm,
do that similar way of rebranding, so that people know, well, wait a minute, there's this girl, I know she's new, but she's really
mhm,
good when it comes on to X, Y, and Z. And it
mhm,
doesn't just have to be in your role too, because, for example, there's a nurse that I'm working with right now that, while she's a clinical nurse, she really loves
mhm,
teaching. So she looks for ways to teach different courses, and not
mm,
just clinical courses, but it could be like team engagement. It could be working through a toxic environment like this, how
mhm,
to deal with patients' families, that sort of thing. So when you get to those core skills you and I were talking about, that's where you
mhm,
can tap into those as well, in addition to the impact you want to have, to
mhm,
rebrand yourself, to network, and really speak to the I'm going to say the achievements that you have, in your toolkit, because that will help you in that new job create that, I'm going to call it social professional proof of who you are and what you know how to do and what you can do there, how you add value to that team and that organization.
I like that. I like that. So, Patrice, as we're winding down, can you share, because you've been sharing nuggets here and there. So, can you please share with the audience for the masterclass coming up on October 20th, the How to Leave a Toxic Job Masterclass, where Patrice is one of the speakers, as well as Latrice. Latrice is an attorney. She's going to be talking about how to prepare yourself to leave in terms of like that legal standpoint, right? In terms of documentation and so much more. So, Patrice, can you share just a little bit about what you're going to be sharing during this outstanding masterclass on October 20th? So again, we're going to be talking about the practical, and we're going to be talking about the mental. So what you need to do to start getting yourself mentally prepared to leave a toxic job. That's not easy. Okay. I know I've been there. It's not easy. So we're going to be talking to you to prepare yourself for that. So I'll give it to you, Patrice.
So I'm going to take it back to where we started. How to identify this toxic workplace, because a lot of times, we're pretty smart, but sometimes in the midst of everything, it's hard to see, right? It's hard to see. So what are things that you can really do to assess, self-assess? Like, wait a minute. Now, is what I'm seeing, or is what I'm feeling? That's the very first thing. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to give you the tools to be able to identify that. So you're not second guessing yourself. Second, how can you protect your own well-being as you're planning your exit, right? Whether it's like you said, you can't tell everybody your business, and you can't let these people stress you out, or what's up, like, okay, like this is it. I hit it, like I'm out. Like, what is that, right? For example, I had a client that ended up in the hospital with high blood pressure that she didn't have before because she hasn't talked about it, and she's working and working and working. And her body was like, hey, girl. Hey, girl. Hey, girl. Like I'm going to get your attention, type thing. So the second thing is protecting your well-being. So that's physical, mental, and emotional. And we are going to talk about what that looks like so that we don't, or we resist self-gaslighting, because we will tend to do that, right? And say, well, it's just a little ache and pain, or, Sunday scares, no. Like, how are we going to get around that? The third thing is we're going to tap into the power of rebranding. You will literally get a makeover for how you consider the work that you have done, the experiences that you have, and how you can talk about yourself in sharing that as you are repositioning yourself for the better opportunities that lie ahead, because we know they lie ahead. And so how can you position yourself for them? The fourth thing is how you can build a supportive network. So get away from LinkedIn, just, hey, be my friend on LinkedIn, but how you can make meaningful, intentional, focused connections as you exit, when you exit, and when you get to your new destination. What does that need to look like, right? And then finally, how you can achieve a good sense of recognition, starting with you recognizing your success in leaving this place, to be able to go and recreate a better opportunity in your new job or business, whatever it is. Once you exit, what does you post whatever look like, and how can you take care of yourself? How can you ensure that this doesn't happen again? And if you find yourself in that position again, what are the red flags that you're like, oh, nope, I've seen this before. I know what that is. I know how to exit and what I need to do to make sure that I take care of me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just want to mention again, everybody, the masterclass, How to Leave a Toxic Job Masterclass, is October 20th. Okay. So sign up. There's a link there. And it's actually a 2-part masterclass. So this is going to be October 20th and October 27th. You can register for both or one or the other. Okay. So October 27th is dealing more so when you leave. What do you do now that you've left the toxic job? So again, you can do both, or you could just do one or the other. Information will be in the description section of this video, and it's also on the screen right now. So I also want to read the chat. And if you haven't already given this video a thumbs up, please do so. It lets YouTube know to suggest this video to other Black women who might be in similar situations. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so, because I want to touch and reach and support as many Black women as I can, because
Yes.
I'm really ushering in a movement to help as many Black women as I can to leave toxic jobs and to do well, not to just leave, but to do well after you leave, right? So financially, you're good. Emotionally, physically, you're good.
That's
Okay,
right.
that's my goal. So again, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and please share this video with at least 2 other Black women. So I see Marissa's here. Hey, Marissa. Our
Mhm.
light infuriates them. Yes, it does. They just, some people, but see, that's deeply insecure people. And that's another sign that you're in the wrong place.
That's
If
right.
you're around people and you could tell they are so jealous
Yeah.
and so intimidated by your light and what you
Hmm.
bring to the table, that's a bad sign,
Yes.
because a healthy person would be like, oh, good. She's got these skills. It can really help us. We can learn from her. No,
Mhm.
if that's the situation, that's a sign. It's toxic, and start making your
That's right.
plans. Okay.
That's right.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, hey Latrice, my sister friends. Yes. So again, I'm putting the information again about registering for the masterclass.
Mhm.
People make a lot of assumptions about how Black people are feeling in the
Yes.
workplace. We're
Yes.
hyper monitor. Yes. So I
Hmm.
remember a friend said to me in the workplace many times for us as Black women that we're hyper visible, right? So they're
Yes.
watching everything we do. But then when
Yes.
it's time for true visibility of promotions,
Yes.
having true power in the workplace, we're just invisible. Okay.
Yep.
So it's like
Yep.
this double kind of thing.
And they
The
also like to throw
surveillance.
us in sinking ships. And then when we stop it from sinking, then it's like, oh, everybody did. Like, wait. That was not what happened here. And then when
Right.
you start to talk about it, then that's a problem too, right?
Right.
So we're good to save, but not good to just enjoy wholesomely.
Right, and uplift, right? And
Yes.
also the whole issue about the glass cliff, that many times Black women are brought into situations that
Hmm.
are almost impossible, not
Yes.
provide enough support. And then if we don't do well in those environments, then we're labeled as the one who's
That's right.
incompetent,
Something's
even though
wrong.
you were set up to fail.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. What do you do if your allies aren't experiencing the abuse you're getting? It's terrible when you are alone. Yeah, it
Hmm.
is. And
Hmm.
that's the part when people see what you're going through, what is the compassion they show to you?
Yeah.
And are they supporting you staying in that environment where you continue to be harmed?
Yes.
Or are they saying to you, real talk, you know what? I don't know if this is the best environment for you.
That's
Even though
right.
it might be hard for you to hear in the moment, but if they're seeing these things happen to you and they're supporting you, they
Hmm.
may say to you, this probably is not the good environment for you. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And listen to that. Listen to
Yes.
that. I was so resistant for so long, Patrice.
Yes. Yes.
People would tell me at the old job, I don't really see you. Like, why are you at this job? Like, I don't really see you here. And
Oh
I would get
goodness.
offended. I would get
Yeah.
offended. Like, what do
Yeah.
you mean I don't belong here? Like, I'm here
Right.
to, but they were seeing something else in me that I couldn't see in myself. So
Yes.
recognize that. The other thing I want to say too is if there's people around you and they're not getting the target of the negative
Hmm.
treatment,
Hmm.
um, don't personalize it and feel like it's something wrong with me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you look a little deeper, do a little bit more research, there's been other people who've been impacted as well in a negative way. You
Hmm.
may not know them. And
Hmm.
the people around you who are not the targets of it, again, see how they treat you. Are they there to support you or do they just kind
Hmm.
of vanish in the wind? So
Yeah.
when stuff is happening to you, they just vanish. And
Yes.
unfortunately, a lot of people did that to me. So
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
mindful and look at the people around you. How are they supporting you?
Yeah.
Um,
Dr.
I'm
Kamani,
sorry. Go
one
ahead.
more
Yes.
thing.
Hmm.
Sometimes the allyship is not real allyship. It can be insidious, like it's hidden. So, for example, if you bring, let's say, a concern to an ally,
Hmm.
and that ally's response is, well, you know what? Just do this extra work, for example, and let's just see. Because that's the answer sometimes, especially if it's a
Mm,
client relationship.
mm,
If your ally is not standing up and speaking truth to power and saying, you know what?
mhm,
Kamani did her job. Kamani is
mhm,
not blah, 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 because they are speaking to who you are.
mhm,
They're not really an ally, but they're smiling. They're saying that, yes, they hear you, but they're
mhm,
also saying, do this extra. So that they make you the laborer of
mhm.
fixing a situation you didn't break, for example.
Uh-huh.
So
Good
that's
point.
another way that it shows up, right? That
Good point.
toxicity. So it can get sophisticated. So again, it's not always like you're the angry Black woman and they're telling you to your face. Sometimes it's hidden.
Yes, yes. And to add another layer too is watch out for allies who say they're allies, But if you look at them, their behavior is not consistent with what they're saying. And
That's
you
right.
may
That's right.
see them like talking about other people all the time.
Yes.
Rest
Yes.
assured, they're going to be talking about you too.
That's right.
So use some discernment, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
look at the data to see what it's telling you. And then the follow up comment is, what if it's the opposite? Working with your own Black people who are treating you like they're hazing you in a sorority. Yeah, I've done a
Oh.
lot of videos about all skin folk and kinfolk, unfortunately, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I invite you to watch the playlist that I have on my
YouTube.
channel about
Hmm.
all skin folk and kinfolk, because unfortunately, some of us take our jobs way too seriously,
Yeah.
and we see each other as a threat. And
Hmm.
then we start acting in ways to kind of push each other down.
Mm.
So, unfortunately, that is a reality for many of us in the workplace.
Yes.
Yes. They like to use terms like accountability, ownership, and teamwork against you because they
Hmm.
can't find anything wrong or negative about
Yep.
your actual work.
That's right.
Always playing psychological games. Yes, they try to get in your head.
Hmm.
Try to get in
Hmm.
your head. The point is this: when you recognize that that's what's happening, you say, "Oh, I
That's
peeped
what
it,
this is.
right? I peeped it. I know what's going on, right?
That's
I'm gonna
right.
play the little game,
That's
but I'm
right.
also gonna start getting my plan together to
That's
get out of
right.
here,
That's
right?
right. That's
Right. I'm
right.
not gonna tip you off,
That's
but
right.
I'm making my plan to get out of here, right?
That's right.
Oh, the tears, yes. Coming to the end of my FMLA, short-term disability, for my union protected job. I'm not
Mm.
returning. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So I just want to commend you, because I was in a similar situation where I was on FMLA and I knew I could not go back. I knew I couldn't. But
Mm.
while I was gone
Hmm.
for a year. I took a leave of
Hmm.
absence for a year. When I was gone, I started working on that exit plan,
Yeah.
because I knew I wasn't
It
going
was a
back.
job. You couldn't make sure
It's a
you
job,
were out of
right?
there.
I
Right.
knew I had to replace my income. I knew all
Yes.
these other things. So my hope for you is that you are also exit
Hmm.
planning, and
Hmm.
anybody else who's watching this,
It's
if
right.
you say, you know what, I need a break from this place because it's
Hmm.
really harming me.
Hmm.
I need to take a break. If you're
Hmm.
able to take a break, that is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
When you're on your break, part of the things to do is to start exit planning. One of the things you might want to do is be a part of the masterclass
That's
as
right.
you think about how to prepare now leaving
Yeah.
and doing well as you pivot, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Trauma impacts our memory. It really does. It really
Hmm.
does. You're not lacking anything. You're soaring. That's why you're
Oh,
being targeted. Yes, yes,
yeah.
and yes. You must validate yourself. Yes.
Hmm.
Demure laughing at that. Yes, absolutely. Skipped heartbeats and palpitations might be
Yes.
more than stress and or anxiety. Yes.
Yes.
So when you start having these physical symptoms, make sure you get checked out by the doctor.
For
Okay,
sure.
because there could be something else going on. Like, you might think, oh, it's just I got a headache, or it
Yeah.
could be your blood pressure's going
That's
up.
right.
So please go get that checked
Well,
out. Okay.
weathering, right? Weathering is something
Oh
that
yes,
happens to us, and it's not until we're like forced to stop sometimes that we even know how much damage has
true.
been done.
True, 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 true. So Patrice is speaking truth. So weathering, I
Yeah.
had Black medical doctors on. They were talking about weathering deals with when you go through a lot of stress, and
Hmm.
it causes your organs to age at a faster rate. So you
Yes.
might be a certain age chronologically, but your
Hmm.
organs might be much older because of chronic stress. And we
Yes.
know that research is saying that Black women were now dying at earlier
Hmm.
ages
Hmm.
because of the stress that we're under, the racism,
Hmm.
the sexism. So we have to take this very seriously. We've
Yep.
seen a lot of Black women die prematurely, so be mindful of that. So yes, so Marissa put on the screen. So October 20th is how to leave, that information, the masterclass.
Hmm.
And then October 27th is how to
To
heal
heal.
after you leave a toxic job. Okay. So that
Oh,
information is on the screen. So I see, let's go, Patrice.
yes.
See
Yes.
your hands up. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And again, please give this video a thumbs up. Unfounded and bogus accusations that are intangible. Yep. They try all these ways to kind of set you up.
Everybody, this is if you were waiting for a moment, this is that moment. I am going to say sign up for both classes because it's like the left and the right shoe. And
Mm-hmm.
as you're thinking about, where you want to go next and how you want to do it, you can own your journey. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't take away from the responsibilities that we have personally
Mm-hmm.
and financially. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're not here, all of that goes to the wayside.
True.
So, my mom will say this sometimes, and I sometimes want to roll my eyes, but in the airplane, they tell you when that oxygen mask comes on, you got to put it on yourself first. Think of how many
Yes.
things you do for yourself first.
Yes.
This needs to be one of them. If you are in a toxic work, not if, you know whether you're in a toxic workplace or not, just like you
Mm-hmm.
know you're in a bad relationship or not.
Mm-hmm.
The inklings
Mm-hmm.
that you're getting, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
dis-ease that you have, the Sunday
Mm-hmm.
scaries that you have, the fact
Mm-hmm.
that you're talking to your girlfriends like, if this woman say this to me one more time, I'm gonna take my you know, we joke about these
And the
things.
fact that your family and friends know all the people at your
But
job, they know them by name. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things that we do to self-soothe because we don't have the
Mm-hmm.
luxury of being able to say, you know what, I'm out.
Right.
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 And that's okay, but until it's not.
Yeah.
So I am going to personally just ask you to just think about yourself. If a loved one came to you and said they needed something, you would make it happen.
Mm,
Do that for yourself.
yeah.
Do that for
That's so
yourself,
important.
and come to these 2 classes.
Mm-hmm.
It will be, I'm going to say, one of the best things you did as
Mm-hmm.
you are thinking about your next steps, as you close
Mm-hmm.
out 2024 and launch
Mm-hmm.
into 2025. It's not too late to make a
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, it seems like we heard of somebody else that has either gotten sick, passed
Mm-hmm.
away, tragedy.
Yeah.
This is a way for you to really step in for yourself and put your oxygen mask on.
True.
And while everything may not apply to you, I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you there will be something that you get out of each of these classes, if not for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, for the people that you know and love. And
Mm-hmm.
tell somebody about this class. Get
Yes.
somebody else to sign up for this class,
Yes.
or gift somebody, you know, entry into this class. But I know at least each of us know at least one person that could
Mm-hmm.
benefit from one or both of these classes. So
Mm-hmm.
share this class with your community. Come to this class yourself. Come and hear what we have to do. I've been working with Dr. Marissa now. Dr. Marissa's at like 6 months now.
Versus here, yeah.
Close. This has been one of the most impactful partnerships that we've had. So come and build your partnership with Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Kamani. Come into this tribe and community and really, you know, as they would say, put your money where your mouth is, on
Yeah.
you, on
Yeah.
you, on
Yeah.
you. You know,
Yeah.
invest in your next season. That's what we are doing, because we're creating this impact, and we're encouraging you to do that for yourself.
Very good. I love that. Well
Yeah.
stated. And I see in the chat that this person has over 706 hours, sick hours. Oh my God. That's an example of not prioritizing
Yeah.
you, right? And
Yeah.
taking your time and making sure that you're healthy. We have
Yes.
to use those hours, okay?
Yes. Yes.
And then the overproduction of cortisol. Yes, all that stress going through our
Mhm.
body is not healthy. And
Mhm.
another person said, the same person said that they'll be on a road trip during the classes. The replays will also be available for purchase.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind. And for everyone who's interested in coming to the master classes, so again, you can either come to both or one or the other.
Mhm.
So the one October 20th deals with how to prepare to leave a toxic job. That
Mhm.
master class is for Black women, and it's 2 hours. Yes, 2 hours. So both of them are 2 hours.
Mhm.
And then the one October 27th deals with when you leave, like how to heal, because it's hard. It is hard
Yes.
to heal from a
Yes.
toxic job after you
It's a
left.
relationship that you
It
have to
is.
learn
And you
all
don't
about yourself
automatically just
again.
feel like, like it's all this stuff that comes up. So it's
Yes.
really a way to learn different ways how to heal, and
Mhm.
to really let you know too that Marissa and I really value your safety and your
Yes.
security and your
Yes.
privacy.
Yes.
So your name will not be listed anywhere during the
Mhm.
master class. You will
Mhm.
not be on camera. The only people who will be on camera will be the speakers.
Yes.
So me, Marissa, Patrice, you will not be on camera. Okay.
Mhm.
So we really want to let you know that. So
Mhm.
everyone, please sign up for the master class. As Patrice said, please tell
Mhm.
other Black women about the master class, and give this video again thumbs up. Share
Mhm.
this video with at least 2, 3, 4, 5 other Black women, and subscribe to my channel. Turn the notification bell so you'll know when I go live.
That's
Okay,
right.
so everyone, thank you so much for watching. Patrice, if you could just stay on for a moment.
Okay.
Bye bye,
Thank you, everybody.
everyone.